Hello and welcome back to Wilder Ranch, where today we're going to have our second installment of our live streams of baking out of the Wilder Ranch Cookbook. So I want to give a few more minutes for people to join us, but in the meantime I wanted to start off by just saying Happy Mother's Day out there to all the moms, and if baking is one of your passions, then maybe this is something you can do for fun with the family and they have to do it with you because it's Mother's Day. Or if maybe you're a little bit tired of doing all the baking, maybe it's time to let your family do the baking. So your day, and you should spend it the way you want. So right now I am in the meter house at Wilder Ranch, and Wilder Ranch is currently open as far as the trails are open. However, parking is in the lot is still closed, and as well as along the highway. So there's no vehicle access right now, and beaches are closed from 11 till 5 p.m. So you are welcome to come to the park if you were to come on foot or by bike, and you can enjoy the trails or go down to the beaches outside of those hours of 11 to 5. And if you are here at the park, please just practice all of our best safety measures right now. And you can find those on the state park website. And that goes with keeping a 6-foot distance and between other people, packing out your own trash, and bringing hand sanitizer. And there's a list of them on the website if you want to check that out. So before I get into the baking, I just wanted to give a little bit of an acknowledgement of where we are right now. And so right now we're standing in the 1859 Gothic Revival meter house. And this incredible historic structure has been here a very long time. But as we know, there's been people on this land for many thousands of years, much longer than that. So I wanted to give a quick land acknowledgement to the indigenous people that have stewarded this land for thousands of years and continue to be actively involved in management and stewardship of our parks today. And you can find more information about what contemporary Native people are doing to continue to be involved and influence our local landscapes, natural landscapes. And you can find that out the Amamutsin Tribal Band, and you can look up their website online. Right. So today is our second week of baking out of the Wilder Ranch Cookbook. So the Wilder Ranch Cookbook has a whole list of different recipes that would have been baked by the Wilders. Many of these are put together from interviews with our different docents who are bakers. Oh, I got a question there. How did the Cowboys cookies turn out last week? I'm going to leave that one up to the moderator because the moderator very well got to test them. So I would say I think they came out okay. And on this show, I do appreciate any kind of, if you have feedback or any kind of ideas that you think would improve some of our recipes, I would say this live stream falls somewhere in the middle of, it's not that show where the people have no idea how to bake. I kind of know how to bake, but I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional. So there'll be mistakes along the way. And I'd love to learn some more and hope that you all can learn some more as well. So today's recipe is going to be Down East Maine pumpkin bread. And I know what you're thinking, it seems a little bit off season, and like many of you, I have been a little bit off on my clock. It feels like kind of hard to tell what time of year it is, what day it is, what hour it is, but I'm not that out of it, and I do understand it is not the fall. But as we talked a little bit about last week, I want to get into that spirit of kind of using what we have, not encouraging people to go out and look for new baking supplies, things like that, but reach to the back of your cupboard and get creative with what you have there. And not only does that help protect all of our safety, but it helps us get a little bit into the spirit of that kind of ethic of conservation and thrift that the Wilders very much embodied. So today, I went through our old stocks, and we have a Heritage Harvest Festival, usually every fall, where we do pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie, and all that. And we had lots and lots of cans of extra pumpkin puree. So today, we're gonna try out this tried and true recipe, tried and true by other people. This is my first attempt at it. If you'd like to follow along, you can check out the recipe. I posted it on the Wilder Ranch Facebook page earlier today, so you can check that out. It's on the feed. It was a post several hours ago. And so that is what we'll be baking today. And as I said last time, we don't have all the fancy cuts in this show, so what I've done is I made one batch of the batter and put that into the oven about 30 minutes ago, and the recipe calls for 50 minutes. So at one point during this live stream, we'll hear probably the timer go off. I'll pull it out and kind of take a look at what the finished product would be like, because we haven't even started the baking yet, and I don't think you're going to be sticking around with me for 50 minutes. At least that's not my intention. So that doesn't come true. Let's go ahead and get into it. And today we're going to be, and if you want to check out, here's a picture of what it kind of comes out like if you do it right. Okay. So, let me just get this up here. Okay. So our first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be mixing in kind of the wet mix. And that's going to call for 2 eggs. And once again, here at Wilder, we've got our Wilder Ranch eggs from our chicken coop. And kind of cool old-fashioned gadget I wanted to show off today is this egg scale. So when you go to the store, you're going to be buying these already weighed out uniform pound or ounces eggs. And if you ever have had chickens, you might know like they are going to have very different size eggs, and it's not always going to be the same, even from the same chicken necessarily. So today I've got 2 eggs, and I'm going to go ahead and use this very simple here egg scale to take a look at what our weight is. Oops, sorry about that, lost the screen there. There we go. Okay, so this first one here. Okay, comes in at just about 25 ounces, and that would be classified as a large egg. So if you were at the store, up till 25.5 is large, and above that is jumbo. And our second egg here, just 22 ounces. So actually quite a bit smaller, but that would also still go into actually a medium-sized egg. So that are the 2 sizes we're using. Of course, that's going to adjust the recipe a little bit, but we're just going to go with that, and the recipe didn't actually specify the size of the eggs. And like I said last week, baking is a science, and all data is good data, so let's see how we do with this medium egg and large egg. All right, I'm going to get into it. Let's start. Okay. So, recipe calls for, and once again, the recipe is going to make quite a large volume. So, I am halving the recipe, cutting it in half, because I am not part of a large family. I don't have 16 ranch hands living at my house, fortunately, although I could use the company in these times of social isolation, but 16 ranch hands would be too many for my apartment. So we're going to cut this recipe in half, and that's going to call for 2 eggs. And we are trying to do things the old-fashioned way as much as we can. But if you're doing this at home, of course, if you've got your electric mixer, things like that, things that make life easier, it's of course okay to do that. We can just kind of be grateful for those new innovations we have today. And you know that the Wilders, as innovative of a family as they were, would have probably had all the latest tech that's around today. All right, so along with the eggs, we're going to mix in the pumpkin puree. Okay, so that calls for 15 ounces. So I've got just under 1 cup here, so it should be just about 7.5 ounces of pumpkin, just this canned pumpkin. Okay. And then, in addition to that, we're going to add, we've got half a cup of vegetable oil. I've got that already measured out in here. And 1/3 of a cup of water. Okay. And then sugar, the recipe calls for, let's see here, 3 cups, so we're going to half that, so that's going to be 1.5 cups of sugar. And today we're just using white sugar, but as I said last week, you know, get creative with it. Use what you have at home. You don't have to follow the recipe exactly. So we're just going to mix that up. And get it all mixed up in the bowl. And while I'm getting that mixed up, we're going to actually be doing a second of the dry mix and then mixing that in together. If you read the recipe, it actually calls for at the very beginning to grease and flour your pans, which I have already done so. And a little bit of the twist I'm going to put on this old-fashioned tried and true recipe today is I'm just going to try them both as a pumpkin bread and also down East Maine pumpkin muffins. So I'm going to went ahead and grabbed a muffin pan as well as just a 3x7. The recipe calls for 3 3x7 dishes. So with half of that, I'm going to be doing 1 3x7 dish and mostly filling the tray for the muffins. All right. Okay, so that will bring us to the dry mix. So we're going to be adding in, this is flour, baking soda, salt, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and ginger. So we'll go ahead and start with the flour. And here it calls for 3.5 cups. So that brings us to 1 3/4 cup. Okay. So that's 1.5 cups in there, but I need that extra 1/4 cup. And I don't have a 1/4 cup, but a 1/4 cup is about equal to 4 tablespoons. So we're going to pull that out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So along with the flour, I'm going to be mixing in baking soda. And remember, we talked about before, baking soda is kind of that, it's going to be a leavening agent, so it's going to help it rise. And so it calls for 2 teaspoons, so we're going to go with half of that, and a full teaspoon. If you add too much, we're going to get kind of that soapy taste. Okay, and then we're going to next need the salt. And for salt, it says 1.5 teaspoons, so it'd be about 3/4 of a teaspoon. And then the flavors. So we've got cinnamon. I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. A 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. We're getting all those fall flavors a little early this year. One-quarter of a teaspoon of cloves, ground cloves. And then finally, 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground ginger. And I do not have an 1/8 teaspoon, so we're going to estimate this one. And I'm going to estimate generously because I quite like ginger, and 1/8 of a teaspoon to make 2 loaves does not sound like that much to me. Okay. Alright, then we're just going to mix this dry mix together. In a separate bowl, remember, from the wet, we're just getting that all stirred together. And then once this is mixed, we're going to be putting this into the mix with the wet ingredients. And I said I'm doing this pretty basic. I'm using a big fork, and I'm just going to do a bit of flour at a time. Let's not put it all in at once. So last week we were asked, there was a question about where can you get the Wilder Cookbook, and it is usually sold in our store, our park store, which currently is closed, along with the visitor center, the interpretive center. The park store did just, for Friends of Santa Cruz State Parks, they did add an online option. Now, as of now, the cookbook is not on there, but I'm going to do my best to get the cookbook added soon so that you could access that. But if you do happen to have the cookbook, so you've already gotten it before, and you've got a particular recipe you want to see made, I do encourage you to send us a message on Facebook. Let us know if you have any requests. And if you're baking along at home and you're going along and you're almost got it, but you just don't have this one ingredient, send a message too, and be happy to kind of troubleshoot some different maybe alternatives that we could use to get a similar product. Now, this is going to take me a minute to mix up, so while I do that, I'm going to actually wanted to talk about this a little bit at the beginning. We're using pumpkins, and pumpkins, become very ubiquitous, used in the fall for Halloween, Thanksgiving. The most common probably dish would be pumpkin pie, but pumpkins are a very ancient used product for people of Central America. So we can date back the pumpkin to about 7,500 years ago to Central America. And the pumpkins they had then, they did not eat. They were very bitter and hard with a very thick rind. So while I get this mixed up, I'm going to ask a question if anyone happens to have an idea about it. Well, what do you think pumpkins used to be used for prior to being eaten? I'll give you a minute to think about that one. Okay. Get that mixed up. See if we had any answers for that. Let's see. Where would the closest general store have been from the Wilder Ranch? So I would imagine, it depends on the time period, but in town, probably somewhere on the west side of Santa Cruz would be my guess. I know that there's a very old market that used to be, it's around the Circle Church. Used to feed animals. Oh, used to feed animals for the pumpkins. Yeah, so it's a good guess. I haven't read that one. What I saw was that they were using them, it was being used for storage, so it had to do with that thick rind and the fact that they wouldn't rot for a really long time, so you could hollow them out, and as long as you get all the pulp and stuff out, if you think about like with the jack-o'-lantern, how long you get out of that, but a smaller, thicker one, and that's what they would use them for. All right, so I'm going to take us over here. We can and this, of course, is our French range Montague wood-burning stove, which unfortunately we're not using today, as it is. This one is not functioning, but the one in our Victorian next door still does. So today we're cheating, and we are using this stove here. Now, a little just peek. So here is what they came out as: muffins, a little bit different size, not quite uniform, but I think hopefully that should turn out well. All right, and we are getting pretty close on the pumpkin bread to pull out. So while we wait on that, we can start with filling the pan. So as I said, I've got it's already greased and floured, so just a thin layer of vegetable oil, shortening would work, butter would work as well, and then just sprinkling some flour, shaking it and getting it on the sides. Don't want to add too much. Okay, so that is the pumpkin bread. There we go. I'm going to grab other mix. And the recipe itself calls to check if it is done using a toothpick. I don't have any toothpicks. Probably do the same with the fork, but I don't want to destroy it too much. And I can already tell it's getting pretty close, but it's a little bit soft on the top, and of course will harden as it comes out, but I'm going to leave it in for just another minute or two. So 50 minutes is what the recipe called for, and we are now into minute 51. I'll pull it out at minute 52. Okay, so, and we are, how long is this running today? We are in the last 4 minutes. I'm just going to pour it out, put that batch in, take this one out, and we'll be done for the day, and we will be returning again next week, and we'll have another live stream today at 3 o'clock. All right. We're just going to fill this up here. About halfway. Remember, the recipe was to fill 3. We did half of that, so this should theoretically fill 1.5. So I'm using about 2/3 of this batter here to go into this pan. And then I'm going to go ahead and distribute the rest into this muffin pan here. the rest of that. The pan itself is about half full, which is about what I did on the first batch, which I'm going to go ahead and pull out right now, and we can kind of see about how that ratio comes out. So that did about right. Could go a little bit more, and could fill it a little bit more, but I think that's just about done there. And we'll go ahead and put in the other one and set the timer for 15 minutes. So that is Down East Maine pumpkin bread, straight out of the Wilder Ranch Cookbook. I thank you for joining us today. We'll be doing another Baking Out of the Wilder Ranch Cookbook next week, and went through and pulled out a recipe that I was interested in because I couldn't find anything like it online. So they're called lemon prints. Lemon prints, and upon a Google search, maybe some of you know about lemon prints, but I could not find anything that resembled the same thing. So we're going to follow the instructions. We're going to see how it turns out, and they'll be the best lemon prints I've ever seen, regardless. So I'm kind of excited about that for next week. And then if you'd like to join us today at 3 o'clock, we're going to be inside the meter house. We're in the meter house now. We'll be inside the machine shop, and we'll be talking about how the Wilders were harnessing electricity and powering the ranch. So thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you again here on a Wilder Ranch live stream. All right, take care.